Hi, my name is Papazoglou, and I have embarked on this autoethnographic journey to investigate how my schooling and university education has played an active role in constructing and reconstructing my views about race, cultural, ethnic difference, and Indigenous peoples. To start, I am going to go down memory lane and give you a little insight about who I am, where I come from, how I grew up, and the experiences that have made me the person I am today. I was born on the 2nd of June in 1997 in Penrith, New South Wales, Australia. I am the oldest child and have a brother named Strat who is 2 years younger than me. He too was born in Penrith. My parents are Peter and Vina Papazoglou, who were also born in Australia. My mum was born in Croydon, New South Wales, and my dad was born in Orange, New South Wales. Both my grandparents were from a small island in Greece called Lesbos. They all migrated to Australia at different times in their lives, between the 1950s and 1960s. Both my grandfathers had a similar story coming to Australia. As they were both the oldest men of their families, they were sent to Australia to work, make money, and were to send that money back to their families in Greece. After working in Australia for a few years, they eventually were arranged by their families to get married. Their wives, my brave and courageous grandmothers, travelled to Australia to meet their future husbands. This story is not only my story, but also the story of many people of Greek and European heritage. As my parents were both born in Australia, this makes me a second-generation Australian. Like many typical Greek families, my parents owned their own business and worked in a convenience store. The shop, as we called it, was a place where my cousins and I would spend most of our time. Although we stayed there for long hours, we had the opportunity to hang out and play for many hours of the day. I grew up in a suburb called St. Clair. St. Clair is a suburb located near Penrith. I would say that not many Greeks live in this area. A lot of Greek people live in suburbs such as Elwood, Belmore, etc. So growing up, although we weren't surrounded by many Greek people or stores in our local shopping centre, my parents did make sure that they sent me to a Greek school. I went to a Greek Orthodox school in Bankstown from kindergarten to year 12. Yes, I travelled from St. Clair to Bankstown 5 days a week. Why, you may ask? Well, when I asked my parents why they took me to that school, their response was that because all my cousins went there, they wanted to make me go there as well. It was also because it was a Greek school surrounded by other Greek kids, Greek parents, and Greek teachers. It was something familiar to them. At my school, we learnt the Greek language in class every day. Our school canteen served us Greek food. We went to church and we celebrated all Greek events. And if all that involvement in Greek life wasn't enough, we eventually moved closer to my school. We moved to Greystanes, a suburb where majority of my family and extended family lived. A small Greek community resided there. I went to school at St. Euphemia College from kindergarten to year 12. This meant that the same 60 kids that I started in kindergarten with were the same 60 kids that I finished year 12 with. Majority of my classmates were Greek, with maybe 3 classmates who had a different background. As a result, my life up until year 12 was surrounded by only people who had the same culture, ethnic background, and values and beliefs as my family did. All my closest friends, until this day, are all Greek as well. I would say my life up until year 12 was very sheltered. I did not have any experiences with any other cultures. Although I did make friends who had either a Lebanese or Italian background, I never really immersed myself within their culture. As suggested in Lane and Tabber's article, cultural capital includes the aspects of culture, such as family background, traditions, education, attitudes, and behaviour that are privileged in a society and typically help one achieve economic success. My schooling experience allowed me to develop a very strong social and cultural capital which shaped my identity and views on life greatly. My cultural capital was promoted at home and at school, which allowed me to become academically successful at school. I identified with the cultural norm that was present at my school, and it allowed me to flourish. I grew up with people who had very similar values and morals to my family. We had the same religious beliefs, we ate the same food, we shared similar stories about our families, and we could always relate to and understand any problems or issues that may have appeared whilst growing up. I also believe my cultural capital developed from the hidden curriculum within the school. The school I attended had indirectly conveyed certain values and ideologies through their teaching practices, through classroom interactions with teachers who had the same background as me, and the way the school was structured. For example, celebrating certain feast days involved the whole school going to church or having a day off school. These set of values and beliefs that were not part of the curriculum significantly impacted the person I am today. Attending university, school life even impacted the sports which I enjoy playing. During school, I participated in sporting activities such as soccer, basketball, and volleyball, which are popular sports in the Greek culture. Although sports such as AFL and cricket are activities that are extremely popular in Australia, I know very little about them, and I can say this was due to the school's hidden curriculum. Whilst at school, I was extremely immersed in my own culture, which was great, as it has made me the person I am today. However, once leaving the school and entering the real world, my concrete thoughts and ideas about life changed and reconstructed immensely. During my time at school, Greek culture was really embedded in me, which made me very unaware of the other cultures that surrounded me. Attending university definitely changed my perception about race, culture, and Indigenous peoples greatly. My sheltered bubble of only Greek culture burst, and my knowledge and views on the diversity that surrounded me expanded and enhanced significantly. At university, I met and became friends with many people of different backgrounds. Starting university was a big deal. I was entering a new world where people weren't from the same background as me. People spoke differently, had different interests, and believed in different things. It was a very eye-opening experience for me, and I started to become very interested and observant into the culture and backgrounds of the people that surrounded me. I made many new friends of different ethnicities whilst at uni. I would spend hours of the day with my new friends working on assessment tasks and lecture notes. During this time, I learned so much about their ethnic background, culture, and religious beliefs. One of my friends was Vietnamese, another Indigenous Australian, and the other was Italian. Spending time with my new friends allowed me to gain a deeper understanding on the type of world they live in, and also brought to my attention the prejudice, racism, and dominant discourses different cultures received. The article presented by Ayashiro suggests that dominant discourses automatically shape our attitudes, opinions, and beliefs in such ways as to make those appear natural or common sense. For my Vietnamese friend, receiving remarks like, "You should know this," "You should be smart," was a common remark she would receive. I realized that over time, my friend started to complete her assignments a lot earlier than the rest of us. She would put so much effort into her study and would study for many hours of the day. I soon realized she would do this, so if someone asked her a question, she would have the answer straight away. I could tell that holding the stereotype where all Asians are smart was taking a huge toll on her mental health. She herself was struggling with the work, however, thought that she needed to maintain that particular stereotype. This friendship allowed me to see, as an outsider, how dominant discourses and assumptions can affect people's lives in a negative and detrimental way. This journal article also suggests that modern power forces individuals to construct themselves along the lines specified by dominant discourses. Dominant discourses strongly influence our lives. We begin to judge ourselves against social norms and start to normalize ourselves along the line of force created by the particular discourse. We start believing in the assumptions people have on us based on our culture, and we tend to lose ourselves during this process. University has also reconstructed my understanding and knowledge on Indigenous people. The intended curriculum at school taught us about how the early settlers came to Australia and created the country in which we live in now. We learnt about colonisation, where the early settlers came from, and who the Aboriginal people were. I remember going on camp and learning about convicts, Captain James Cook, and Ned Kelly. Throughout my schooling, I don't remember learning about Indigenous communities and their struggles as much. This aligns with the political ideology of neoconservatism. The curriculum and textbooks are constructed in such a way to support the Western tradition. Colonization was heavily included in the curriculum. However, minority groups, such as Indigenous Australians, were rarely focused on during my schooling. My biggest memory that involved Indigenous Australians was when Kevin Rudd made a national apology to the stolen generation.
We apologise for the laws and policies of successive parliaments and governments that have inflicted profound grief, suffering and loss on these our fellow Australians.
I was 10 years old at the time, and I remember it as being a huge event that was taking place on TV. I didn't think much of it at the time, as I was really young. I don't remember the apology to the or at home. It wasn't until I was in Year 8 in my English class where I came across the movie The Rabbit-Proof Fence. I remember my teacher being so shocked at how minimal our knowledge was on the Indigenous community and stolen generation. We spent a few weeks on the movie as it was part of the intended curriculum, and we analysed the movie techniques that were used. The story of the Rabbit-Proof Fence really moves me and heightened my knowledge greatly on the struggles Indigenous people faced and how important that apology was to them. Seeing the real Molly at the end of the movie definitely reconstructed my views and perceptions about Indigenous people. It was a true awakening. Learning that the movie was a true story and the inclusion of real people sharing their experience, their only stories. It wasn't until I went to university and met a friend who was Indigenous that changed my view and understanding on Indigenous people. Hearing first-hand stories at what my friends' families experienced growing up and witnessing people stereotyping and being prejudiced towards him changed my perception and understanding on Indigenous people tremendously. Partaking in units such as catering for diversity, creating safe and inclusive environments, and even this particular unit, social and cultural context, has allowed me to develop my understanding and knowledge on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples' histories and culture. I have now learnt how important it is for us to acknowledge, respect, and understand their cultural differences, and how important educating Indigenous is. I realised how narrow-minded and unknowledgeable I was. 9 who entered I had to accept him. After individual, he was not in a score ending and views from hand vexed people life. An inoculum, gently shifting and our